I just pushed
And also, in case I need to kill myself, I will use this DL44 blaster. What? Sorry? Are we live? So you can see the backers just dropping off the project. Right? It's like, wow, we're down to only 4 backers, and I'm one of them.
Okay, well, I'll introduce this. So my name's Nikko. I'm here with Cross Culture Magazine, introducing Frank and Richard, and we're here to discuss their new encounter card deck for the Dungeon World role-playing game. They've just launched a Kickstarter this month, and they've got about a week and a half left to go, and so we're going to chat with them and talk a bit about the project, what you can do to contribute, and how this whole thing started. So Richard and Frank, say hello. Introduce yourselves might be a good way to start.
Go ahead, Frank.
Awesome. I'm Frank Emanuel, and yeah, this was my design idea, and yeah, we just kind of run with it. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about myself. Just I'm a gamer. I love role playing. So, Richard.
My name is Richard Dufault. I'm the artist on this project, and Frank is making me do it.
Awesome.
Pretty much what it is, yeah.
So exciting to be here. You both sound.
I also play a lot of role-playing games, and Frank and I think together we discovered the joys of indie role-playing. So.
Nice.
No more giant corporations running our role-playing lives. God damn it.
That might be a really good segue to start this. So can you explain what the Dungeon World game is, for those that might not know?
Yeah, for sure. So, you want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
You can fight over it.
No, you can tell.
You can always fight over it. That's always fun. So I think we actually have some people joining us, too. Did you see that? Or I just want to make sure. Okay. So Dungeon World is... The best way to describe it is there's a feeling that we had when we were young and we first discovered Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm glad you said Dungeons and Dragons and not something else. You know,
oh, yeah,
I had a feeling, but when I discovered things,
the tingly feeling.
Yes. Not the tingly,
but the pages of my dungeon.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So there was this awesome feeling of that. You know, we had just discovered this whole new world, and we were going to play all these adventures, and I remembered, you know, doing many all-night sessions with my friends, and the stories that we told about it were a lot more epic, I think, than the actual gameplay itself. But, you know, as we got older, we were playing more and more different editions of Dungeons & Dragons, and it became more about the mechanics than about the role-playing or the things that we remembered about the epic kind of stories that we told. And it wasn't that they weren't good, but Dungeon World took me back to that feeling. It was the classic fantasy tropes, a very simple role-playing engine, very simple mechanic, and it allowed you to just tell these amazing, awesome, epic stories very simply and in a way that you could do it with any people. I do it with non-role players. I've got a role-playing group that's been playing it for a couple of years now. It just works really well. So it's an indie, meaning it's not produced by a big company like Wizards of the Coast. It's produced by Adam Koebel and Sage Latora. I mean, 2 guys put this game. It's an adaptation of Apocalypse World, which is another popular indie role-playing game, and it's just fantastic. So,
well, I played it for the first time. It was my very first experience playing any kind of a role-playing game was with you guys at the Awesome Adventure Academy a few months ago, and it was awesome. It was it just totally got me hooked, so I'm really excited about this too.
So I want to clarify that we are not the writers of Dungeon World. I keep having to explain this to my wife, so I understand that people might not get it, that we're making a deck of cards for use with Dungeon World, but we're not the writers of Dungeon World. We're huge fans of the game. Just the fact that Dungeon World is an independently produced game that's sort of published under a Creative Commons license allows people like us to make things for the game. It helps that community. So yeah, there's that.
Okay.
Just want to make sure we don't write it.
Yeah. No, that's really clear. I was gonna say so. What is an encounter deck then? Can you go on to explain what is this? How does this relate to the Dungeon World game?
So any of the iterations of Dungeons & Dragons or other games that I've played, I've often tried to come up with tools that allowed me to quickly put together scenarios. And one of the things that we've done and used when they're produced by games is create decks of monsters. And so I had the idea to create a deck of monsters for all of the monsters from Dungeon World. And Richard helped me organize that and had this idea, hey, this probably could be something that we could give back to the Dungeon World community as something that we could make and that people would be able to use. So our encounter decks are the monsters from Dungeon World, plus a bunch of monsters that we've created and used as we started using the cards and realized we wanted to have Sturges and different things like that. And then we've also added a whole bunch of other cards that we can talk about a little later, which are the utility decks. And those allow you to quickly create traps and useful items and all sorts of things that your Dungeon World asks you to create as you're going along.
Nice. So are you guys just doing the graphics for it, or are you designing the creatures and the items yourselves as well?
Well, the initial deck of monsters are all the monsters from the book. So we've taken the text and put original art with it. And we've added our own monsters where we've designed the monster and we've added our own art. And then all of the items and other things are our own creation.
That's cool, and you can see Richard's showing a few examples. I think, Richard, it only shows your screen big when you talk, so make some noise so your cards pop up.
So these are Goliaths. I've decided that I want a lot of the art. So these cards all have sort of a description of monsters on them and fiction that shows you how to use the monsters in an encounter. And I thought it would be cool for the art to sort of represent characters being killed, characters fighting the creatures, or interacting with the creatures in certain ways. So a lot of the art that I do in this is going to have, the hapless or the party sort of in the front being pounded on by whatever the bad guys are. In this case, it's the Goliaths. So.
So I'd imagine that won't only help you guys when you're creating the game or creating the story within the game, I suppose, but really to help people who are playing, especially if it's their first time, to visualize these monsters and really become closer, like get more involved in the game than they would maybe without seeing them. The people for the first time. I know you had them with you, your starter deck, when we were at Awesome Adventure Academy, and you were talking about what happened in the story. We were stuck in a gelatinous cube with something, and we had all these characters, and being able to actually see the drawings and everything in front of me actually really helped me sort of visualize myself within the game, which I thought was a really, really awesome addition to what the game, I guess, otherwise would be.
Especially since I totally stole the idea of Will Wheaton's character being eaten by a gelatinous cube in a pit from a web thing that he did. So that's a piece of art we're going to have to change when we publish, unfortunately. But yeah,
that's too bad.
So that's his character Aoful being eaten by a gelatinous cube, and it's actually it's online. You can just look for it. Just look for Will Wheaton getting killed by gelatinous cube, and you'll find it. And it's awesome and hilarious. So. I think he actually plugged Dungeon World in one of his tabletop things. So.
Oh, cool. All right, so why Kickstarter then? Why are you guys bringing this through Kickstarter?
We need money.
Well, both of us are married guys. We've got a lot of things going on, and it's to bring in a product like this. It involves having a lot of startup capital to be able to pull it off. And we wanted to be able to do really awesome cards and get them into the hands of people. So Kickstarter seemed like the best way to do that. It allows us to set the level, set the rewards, and if we don't get enough funding, then nobody's at a loss. So your only risk is that you're going to get something. It's not like other kind of crowdfunding where we'll get some money even if you don't get anything. So you're going to get something at the end of the day. If we fund and we take your money, we're going to get you some awesome cards. So that's why we went with Kickstarter.
The biggest expense for this is the printing of the decks. I guess we could probably sell this, on DriveThruRPG as a PDF or something with just the art that I make. It'd be all right, but people wouldn't have these big tarot card decks. They'd be smaller because stuff that you can print yourself, you can't print them a certain size. So they wouldn't be as good, and the only way people are going to be able to get their hands on really good cards is if we have them printed by a printer, and there's minimum quantities, and so we have to raise X number of dollars. And if the amount that we're raising is sort of an odd number, that's because it's the exchange rate. So thank you, Government of Canada. Our exchange rate is really bad right now, and so the target is what it is.
So if you're American,
but it's Canadian dollars. You Americans are making out like bandits.
If you're American, this is a really, really, really cheap way to go.
It's actually not true. It's the same price it was before, but it just seems like more to Canadians. So Americans, we're there for you.
Well, hopefully our dollar goes up soon. All right, so go on.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, one of the things about the targets for printing is that we based the numbers on printing the base deck and the base utility cards at a printer that will allow us to do 500 units. And that's very odd to find something like that. And of course it costs a lot more than if we can print at 1,000 units. So that's why we structured the stretch goals to give you more and more stuff, because the more decks we sell, the more we have to order, which actually brings the price down so that we can add more. So we can actually have a total of, so we have 160 cards roughly in the monster deck, and then we can have 2 other 60-card decks. So you'd be getting 3 decks of cards for that price. So it seems like a lot of money, but if we can get the funding that we want, you'd be getting 3 cards of deck, or 3 decks of cards, 3 cards of deck.
So it's really worth to share. If you want this project to become a reality, if anyone, for all of your backers, really it is worth it to share it around and get your friends involved, because that'll mean once you've already pledged, then you will get more back for what your initial pledge was.
And the other thing that's really cool about it is if you have, say you've got a gaming group, you can all split the cost. We used to do this when we played 4th edition, and we would split the cost for the online subscription. So I mean, it was dirt cheap. And then also when people wanted to add a class or something, they would often buy the source book for the group. So
or as a gift.
Add the books. Yeah, I got a few of them as gifts. So
as a gift is great. Even if they don't play role-playing games, buy them this gift. It's awesome.
Exactly.
Well, Christmas is coming up in a couple months, so it's perfect. Everyone has at least one nerd in the family.
We won't have the product out to you by Christmas unless you order the prototype version, which we will actually ship out to you right away, a prototype deck, the ones that we are using. Actually, has tons of cards that we're trying out. You can give us our feedback on which cards are most useful, and it'll help us as we decide which ones go into the final deck.
So you can give an IOU gift to someone for Christmas, and you'll get them next year.
That's right. You'll get the really awesome new cards with all the nice laminated, and then they'll get the ones that we print on our own and painstakingly put together.
The PDFs will be available much sooner. The PDFs will be available many, many months sooner than the decks. And everybody who buys pretty much anything from this Kickstarter, except for like the very basic nod, gets all the PDFs of everything. And the more stretch goals we hit, all of those PDFs are added to whatever people get. So, and there's no shipping on PDFs, obviously. So PDFs, man.
And the other thing about the PDF is we actually put the PDFs into a format where you have a book, and we printed that book, which is really handy when I'm running a game. I have my deck of random monsters, and then I really want a Minotaur, so I'm not going to go rifling through that. Or if I go through the Dungeon World book, I've got to remember what setting was the Minotaur in. This book's all in alphabetical order. Minotaur. I got my picture. I got a big picture of the deck. It's awesome. Richard probably has that book handy.
I do.
Yeah. So we've been taking these to the cons and showing off our cards with them.
Oh,
it's really handy.
Very cool. Well, I think you just sort of answered my next question. I'll ask it anyways. You might have something to elaborate on. So I spoke earlier about how I really benefited from you guys having the cards, having the drawings in front of me. But can you give examples or tell a bit of a story about a time that you really found the cards useful in running a Dungeon World game from the perspective of someone who's actually hosting the game, not necessarily someone who's the guest playing?
Go ahead, Frank.
Okay, well, I've been running it at the cons, and I find that when you're doing a sit-down game at the cons, is cons funny, Richard?
No, I can hear a dog barking. That's all.
Sorry, she's out.
Oh. Nice.
She's
well,
noisy.
My cat has some bark, so.
So the only bad thing about living in this new apartment is just it echoes. The ceilings are so high, and the bark just.
You need more furniture.
Yeah.
Nice.
Sorry, go on, Frank.
So when you're playing it at the cons, and I love to go to cons and run games, In fact, this Saturday I'm running it for the Ottawa Gatineau Gamers Group, and so I'm going to be running games for them in the Belize, actually. So I'll show up. I don't have to have very much prepared at all. In fact, I often will just grab one of my starter scenarios, come in, so I've got a little bit of a story to start off with, and I'll create my decks to just go. And I might even create them as I sit down and people are filling out their character sheets. And
when
then
you see,
we
look,
just,
if you see what kind of characters people play or what kind of players people are, you could make those choices.
yeah, and so you can just sit down and just run with an idea. So actually at the Capital Game Expo, I ran a couple of games. Richard ran a couple of games. One of the nights I had this idea of I wanted to do kind of a kind of a puzzle dungeon. And so I created this kind of contrived scenario where everybody gets teleported in and wakes up on these stone slabs in this room. And so I grabbed a deck of monsters that I normally wouldn't use because I just wanted to challenge myself. So I've got like all of these monsters like the concept elemental and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to just throw all this in here. And so they're going through trying to solve puzzles, and so I was working out ways to make each one of them puzzles. And it was so much fun for me as a GM, just pulling up, oh, how am I going to use the concept elemental? Oh, its move is to perfect a concept. So I like came up with the idea that, oh, Richard's getting the raw. So I came up with this idea.
Sorry.
He's playing with the interface.
I'm trying to make it go away and it won't go away. Sorry, continue.
Okay, so I came up with this idea of the concept being in hospitality. And so I thought to myself, well, they're trying to find these items and get rewarded with these items as they go through the rooms. So, so the puzzle was to actually recognize what it was the concept element was doing. So they came into a room. I had a big table, and on the table was all this food that smelled freshly prepared and all of this stuff. And so one of the guys, he's like, I jump up on the table, start smashing things around. And so I'm like, yeah, as you smash into the meat and stuff, you realize there's bits of glass and bits of metal in there. And he's like, what the heck? And he's so they're like wrestling around, and one of them gets upset and goes over and starts ripping the tapestries off the wall. And I'm like, so underneath it, it looks like clay. So the guy sticks his sword into it, and I'm like, it breaks your sword off, so you don't have your sword anymore. And he's like, oh, what am I gonna do? So the other guy goes, oh, I've got a pickaxe in my adventure gear, because the adventure gears got whatever you want. You just knock off a use. So that was great. So he pulls out a pickaxe, starts picking away at the wall, and I'm like, well, it's falling down like clay, but the clay starts to form into things like spoons and knives, and they're like, what is this? And they all take off. But one of them says, okay, I stand in the door and I turn around and say, that's the most inhospitable thing I've ever seen. And I was like, what? He actually said that? So, of course, the treasure they were looking for drops out at them. And I was like, oh, man, the concept elemental turned out to be awesome. It turned out to be great fun. So the thing I like about the cards is they open up all these possibilities. You never know where you're going to go with them. So in a con setting, that just leads to awesome storytelling. So
that sounds great. That sounds like a game I wanted to be a part of. How about you, Richard? Any stories along those lines?
Yeah, at the last convention we went to, I forget the name of it now. It was the Geek Market. It was
the Capital Gaming Expo.
Capital Gaming Expo. Yes, yes. I had the party were in a sewer, and they were sort of advancing knee deep in nasty fluids, and they found a big chamber that all these sewer pipes emptied into, and there was sort of a mini whirlpool in the middle where it was draining. And I decided there was going to be a trap there, so I just randomly pulled out a trap, and it was something like a falling floor with alarm. So I thought, oh, that's really cool, So the thief basically went out there and triggered the trap, and so the floor falls out, and then it becomes like a giant toilet, and so he hangs onto one of the sewer pipes, and then the alarm goes off. And then the monster appears that I randomly drew from my mini. I had made a mini deck of monsters that I thought would appear in a sewer, and it was an OTUG. OTUGs are they're like sewer monsters. It was perfect, and it has tentacles, and so out came the tentacles, and so it was just a perfect. It just worked out perfectly, and I might have drawn another monster first and just discarded it because the OTUG was better. So, yeah, and it was just it was really great because I don't like fleshing out an adventure, to the point where it's this thing that you just read to people and then they don't get to make any choices. So to flesh out an adventure, yes, flesh. And so I like to wing it, and I like it that I can basically draw a card and get a sort of an idea and then expand it, and it becomes almost like performance theater or improv, and I think and this way your adventures are more organic, and players actually have buy-in, and they can feel like they are actually helping to build the world and do things. So that's really cool. Yeah. So the Odiug is sort of the outhouse monster.
Ooh, creepy.
And I've been to this outhouse too. So. Yeah.
You've got experience.
Yeah, and so what's really cool about these monsters, and the last time I ran, actually, I think that was the session where I finished running the game, and I sort of handed out little demo cards to people. One guy was like, "Oh, these cards, well, the trap cards would be really cool, and the magic item and useful item cards would be really cool, which are cards that you use to make random magic items or random items that you find, But the monsters, we don't play Dungeon World, we play whatever other game." And I just I was tired, and I didn't really reinforce to the guy. These monsters are all very classic monsters that appear in every other game. Orcs and Odiugs, and these are all monsters that appear in other games. And even though the stats from those other games are not on the cards, the fiction that's on the cards is what makes them really cool. So the fiction is a sentence that a game master can read that brings it into the adventure and makes it interesting. And so even if you don't play Dungeon World, you can still use these cards, I assume, to run other games. So.
Yeah, actually, one of our friends runs Numenera, and he likes to use his thing is to use the item cards to help generate quick items for us to find.
Especially in Numenera.
Yeah, so the item cards, what I like about the Magic Properties deck that we have, which is one of our stretch goals, is it is just a little bit of fiction, so that you don't have like a +1 sword or a +1 shield. You have like a shield that's maybe dangerous or has different qualities to it, and then it leaves it open for some interpretation, which makes for really interesting items. In fact, we have one guy in my regular game. He got a helmet, and I pulled up the quality dangerous, and so I decided not to use the dangerous tag with it that you would use in Dungeon World, but to instead interpret that a little differently. So what I did was I interpreted it so that if he's trying to do something and he's really successful with it, it's really dangerous for the person he's going against. But if he's unsuccessful, it's really dangerous for him and his party, particularly his party. So it's led to some really fun situations. So anyway, things like that where you can just take the fiction and run with it, it just makes the game a little more robust.
Yeah, in a game that I had, I handed out an item which was a flask of fragrant oil that was glowing, and so the guy decided it was like the flask. It was like the flask from Lord of the Rings where Galadriel gave this little bottle with the starlight coming out of it, and so they actually used it in the adventure when they were stuck in a dark place. He pulls it out and it made light, and it was pretty cool. So
awesome.
Yeah,
just provides inspiration and contributes to the story, and I guess that's what the point of these games is, just all about the story, isn't it, and the experience.
Yeah, and I think Nikko, your druid character is going to get into this deck somehow. So.
Ooh. Cool. What was her name? My druid.
Yeah, your druid from the cosplay thing, not your druid.
Cool.
You didn't play a druid in the game. You played a thief.
No, I played a thief. And what was his name?
It was a female. Wasn't it a halfling thief?
Yeah.
Gumpert.
That name. Yeah. It's
like some weird.
I have to pull up the sheets because it's one of the.
I don't have the sheets. But yeah. Anyway. But you seem to enjoy it, which is pretty. It's a lot of fun when you run a game for someone for the first time and they just really, really like it. So it means you're
I loved it.
You're starving for this kind of pleasure. So that's good.
Yeah.
You
guys got me hooked. I spent the entire day playing the game and left my table unmanned at the convention the whole day.
Nice.
Bad for sales, but I had a great day.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a bunch of friends come over that were friends of mine from when I did my undergrad, and we're all hanging around, just having a kind of a party. And I said, well, I knew only one of them role played, and so I said, hey, why don't we try playing Dungeon World? And so we started playing, and they came up with these very preposterous characters. One guy was a bard whose weapon was slinging barbs and jabs at people. Like, he just would insult people, and that was somehow supposed to do damage. But we played, it was a riot. They all had a blast, and we just, it was the silliest game I think I ever ran. But everybody just had a hoot, and none of them were role players before that. So, that's, I think our mission in life is to convert people to role players.
Well, I think that's what's so great about this game too, is it is so accessible.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to participate in the game, you don't have to have experience in it. You don't have to know what you're doing. It's a game that, you can go blindly through, and, you have a good GM. You guys have obviously been doing this for a long time, and yeah, I mean, you fall right into it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So, I've got one more question. Can we go back to the Kickstarter? Because you do only have 10 more days. It would be awesome to get it out there more. But so how are you guys going to fulfill the orders after the Kickstarter successfully finishes?
So we've actually we've done a bunch of research in terms of, I've gotten quotes from many different publishing houses. What do we call it? They're printers. Actually, when we first looked into it, we actually started talking with a printer in China. And I had a few instances that happened that made me go, I'd really like to have someone in the middle of this, because if something goes sideways, there's no way I can deal with it. So at the 500 card limit, we have a company in Chicago that will do it and actually do all the American fulfillment for us. So they'll get the cards, they'll ship over to their warehouse, they'll do all the American fulfillment, and then ship the rest to us in Canada, and we'll do the international and the Canadian fulfillment here. Actually, we may do the international fulfillment there if it's cheaper, but it depends on what's going on at the time. Shipping things from Canada is ridiculously expensive. I don't know if you've encountered that with your magazine.
Yes.
Yeah, it was cheaper for me to send. Yeah. Anyway, I was doing all the pricing. So, but that company they'll make good quality cards. But the ones that made the best quality cards is where we would go. We could only really afford to do them if we were ordering 1,000. And so it's between Panda and another company. But I've actually just heard about another one that I'm going to ask for a quote in the next week. But what we're going to do is we're going to put the order in, have it come, go to a fulfillment service, go out to people quickly, because that's what we'd like to see happen. And then we'll take care of any local stuff, so that when the stuff comes to us, we'll have a party here for all the local people that bought into it, and you can all come. We'll see if we can have it at Monopolies or something, and you can come and we'll play Dungeon World, and you can get your cards. So that's what we're hoping to do. Yeah.
How big are the cards? Explain the product itself a little more.
I don't have my cards with me. They're downstairs. Do you have yours, Frank? I feel like an idiot.
I know. Just a second. I'm just reaching over here. Okay. I got my Tomb of Horrors shirt on. I was wearing that under my dress shirt when I was teaching tonight.
I have no logos. My wife said I should wear a shirt, though, so...
So these are the cards in the size that we're going for. It's 70 by 120, which is the standard tarot size. When we were doing these cards before,
wow, they're like, it's bigger than your head. That's great.
Yeah, it's like, look, see, I can hide behind these things. Well,
but it's show them how many cards there are. Like
so this is the monster deck.
If you're balking at the price, you get a lot of cards, and it's not just one giant deck. There's like there's several decks within that.
These are the other 3 decks that we have.
Oh, sorry, no, that is just the monster.
That's traps.
Okay. That's crazy.
That's the magic properties that we have. This is our prototype deck that we're working with, and this is all of the items that we have. So the items are really awesome in that you draw 2 or more cards.
Can you fan them like Penn and Teller?
No, I can't. But here I drew a helmet,
Jeez.
And then the quality that I drew was a worn down helmet. So now I've got like this helmet that's like looks like it's all beaten down, and so that makes it an interesting item. and I could actually just grab a random magical property, and I don't need to tell them right away, but I can put it on there that it's unlucky. So that could be really interesting to see what happens with that when they start wearing that walking around the dungeon. So you can quickly generate all kinds of useful items. A small ceremonial dagger, or you could flip it around and it becomes a lance that has a set of instructions on it. So what's that set of instructions for? That'd be kind of bizarre.
So you notice that the cards, the cards have two sides to them, and one side is an item and the other side is a modifier. So you can generate many combinations of things using these cards. And so as a player, Nikko, when you played, you might not even have known that we were doing that. But so if you got, a dangerous quill, like I gave to a guy on the weekend, he was like, "Ooh, a dangerous quill," and he sort of made up a story about why it was dangerous, and it's like, obviously quills are dangerous, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it comes from the cards.
That's one of the things that Dungeon World really promotes, is that the players get to add to the fiction. So I can say, this is a helmet that's all worn down. Tell me something about it. And they might go, oh yeah, it's all worn down, but it's got a faint emblem, like some kind of regal insignia or something on it. And then that becomes part of the fiction of the game, and it allows the game to be more of a collaborative storytelling than just the GM telling you exactly what you're seeing. I just love the freedom that it gives us.
It might be a great idea as a follow-up to this another day is to broadcast a game of Dungeon World live on a Google Hangout like this.
Yeah, actually,
yeah.
Are you available next week, Nikko?
I am.
Well, you're on holidays next week. Wow, God, okay.
Reading week, so I'm on holidays too.
Yeah, well, holidays.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be reading, but you're not going to read, are you? You're just going to drink and play video games. Yeah, so.
Just read a report of my Dungeon World experience and handed it in to my teacher. I think it's okay.
Good.
So I'll just show the trap cards that work the same way, which we have a trap, concealed, spiked, with freezing. I just randomly drew that. One of the things that we found out when we were doing the play testing is that the black on red actually doesn't work for people who have color blindness. So we will be redoing these cards, but the prototype deck works this way. So I know I have a friend and he's looking at it going, no, it's just a red bottom or just a black bottom. Oh no. So that's why it was important for us to build some prototype decks to see what worked and what didn't work, because we wanted to use color and in a way that would allow you to quickly be able to find out what cards fit in what settings for Dungeon World. So I can grab all the swamp cards because I can see their color. But because some people have challenges with color, we've also put at the top of each card the actual name of the setting that they're from. So this is Swamp Denzians. And we use these blocky letters so that if you look at that, you can see a word shape pretty quick. So it just helps you to sort these out really quickly.
And I'm aware that a lot of people have trouble reading stuff that's too pretty, so in the design of the cards, I like to make it so that it's legible and readable. So definitely the trap cards that are like black on red, we're going to work on increasing the contrast so that it's probably going to be a red border instead of full red, so people can read the text. Because
that's really cool that you guys are thinking about this stuff, though. That's great.
Yeah, especially if you play, if your game master wants to have an atmospheric session and has a like a blue light in the ceiling or something and pulls out his cards, you can't read them.
Flashing blue lights.
Play by candlelight. Yeah.
Nice.
Can you talk a little bit about the timeline of when you could get these ready? And so if someone were to pledge and purchase a set of these cards, when could they expect to get them?
Yeah, so we have the dates that are initial targets online. The big problem with that is that we can't control things like printing, but we want to keep people up to date on everything as we go along. And the other thing that as we add more art, and we have a few people that have gone in at the level where they get to design their own cards. So some of that stuff will actually push our targets a little bit, but we're hoping to keep them as close as we can. Try and get, Richard's shaking his head because right now he's the primary artist.
It's going to take like a minute to draw some of those. Be fine.
Oh, okay. So
I just drew 3 while we were talking. It's fine.
Nice. So we want to have really nice art in it. So that's what takes a lot of the time. And
Wow.
yeah, that's art from one of our artists that we have lined up, Kat Hennessy. She's amazing. So
That's beautiful.
if you want to see more of her art in the cards, then pledge away so that we get up the higher levels.
Yeah, Kat Hennessy likes to draw a lot of moody goth girl type stuff, so we'll make sure that we use those in the appropriate places. So this would be like a bonus card. So when we hit those bonus targets, the first thing is going to be plus 10 monsters. I think we're going to do a succubus. So that would be a succubus from hell. Anyway. Word. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. I was just looking. Sorry, never mind. I just got distracted. I thought I had a black mole following my face on the screen, but it was my mouse had a black dot on it. It was like, ooh, should have looked in the mirror before starting this.
So if there's any questions from people who are listening in, I think there's a couple people listening in, is there? Or?
How do we know?
Yeah, there were a few people. Do you have more examples that you could show of some of the monsters, or some of the monsters that you can talk about? Or how about this? Or are there any original monsters that you guys have created that are of particular interest? Or?
Yes.
Great answer.
So I guess you can't really say it's an original monster since it's a sturge, which is a classic staple of D&D gaming. Sturge is like a giant. It's a cross between a bat and a mosquito, and they fly in swarms and they suck the blood out of hapless adventurers in caverns. So yeah. So we did the. This is a dwarf getting his blood drained by sturges. So yeah. So that's going to be one of the ones in the first plus 10.
That's absolutely terrifying.
It's especially if you live in Canada, because you know those mosquitoes are bloody awful. So.
I've seen mosquitoes happening.
So just to see the progression of the art too, this was our original sturge, and so that
we drew that at a convention.
Yeah. So the art, we really want to be able to do better art for all of the cards, because the art really makes it. I mean, even this was pretty cool at the time. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
This is actually a monster that's in the deck. This is the land shark, the bullet. So it's a creature that comes out of the ground, and it's got a fin that comes out of the dirt. It's totally ridiculous. And again, it's a standard monster you see in games like Dungeons and Dragons. So it's a pretty cool, like just some random piece of art. Like I just have colored cardstock that I draw on using, pastels. So
Nice.
don't think we'll ever use this one, but it's just another sketch that I did. So. But Frank, you can keep talking.
Well, I'm not sure what to talk about at this point. I'm ready for some questions. That'd be awesome. But you can keep showing art.
Halfling Thief. This one went through many iterations. I'm still not sure if this is what I want to finish with, but it's a Halfling Thief. It's a short woman stealing from somebody. So
That was me, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the fiction of this card basically writes up that these are like they'll pretend to be your friends, and they're like nasty little halfling thieves are nasty, and they'll pretend to be your friends and they'll rob you at a party and stuff. So I just drew her like in a nice cocktail dress. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually drew that as a random encounter in my regular game, and I had this halfling thief named Cheryl who followed them around for a long time, and they all were kind of trying to be her love interest, because that was her game, right? To make you like them. And eventually she died in a horrible chair accident. And
What's a chair accident?
Well,
That's
a whole bunch of
questions.
How dentists lose their license? The chair accident. Yeah.
Played a whole bunch of ogres in the room, and one of the ogres threw this chair at the thief, the actual thief in the party, and I said, well, he rolled a middling roll in his dodge, and I said, well, here's the thing. You can let it hit you, or you can get out of the way and let it hit Cheryl. And he's like, well, I guess Cheryl's going to take the chair.
The exact opposite happened in a game that I ran, where there was a halfling She was a halfling waitress in the bar, and she's in every adventure that I run, like for my kids at home, and so she's got a lot of mileage on her. And the paladin, who's like this really, really, really lawful guy, is fighting another paladin in the bar, and the other paladin's got the huge sword that he swings in a great arc, and the character basically he got a middling result. So in Dungeon World, it's a pretty simple game system. You roll 2 dice, you add your stat bonus. Like if you're trying to hack and slash someone with your sword, you roll your 2 dice, d6s, you add your strength bonus. This guy had like a +1. And if you roll 10 or higher, then you succeed. You do your damage to the opponent, everything as well. If you roll 7, 8, or 9, you do your damage to your opponent, but they get to do their damage back to you. And if you roll 6 or less, you miss, and something bad happens. And so that's what I had. I said, oh, he swings this massive sword around, and he's gonna hit the halfling waitress, unless you let it hit you instead. So he actually took the blow. So it was pretty good. So yeah, so he got some halfling love afterwards, but not before she robbed another member of the party. So, and he didn't find out so much later. But anyway, yeah. So halfling thieves, and this is all like this all comes from the fiction on the card. So you can draw these random encounters, and you think, oh, whatever. But and that creates like a whole interesting thing that helps develop the characters. Because I mean, the paladin, who knew he was going to take a blow for some lowly, bar wench essentially. So it was very interesting. Later on, that same paladin pushed the party thief off a cliff because he didn't like him. So actually, with the sewer thing, he pushed him into the sewer. Anyway, it was neither here nor there. So. Paladins are dicks. Yeah. So here's like another. Still not sure. I think I want to do some more versions of this. This is the ogre, basically about to pull a hat. He's going to make a wish, and he's going to pull that elf apart, piece by piece. I think. But yeah. So anyway. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Is there anything else that you guys want to add to this? I think we're getting close to 45 minutes here. We can keep going.
Crap, time flies. But, so the people who are logged in, if you have any questions, and if you don't know how to communicate with us on this, I'm checking the email, I'm checking the Dungeon World's mailbox, and I see nothing.
You can find them on Kickstarter if you search Dungeon World Encounter Cards. It'll come up right on top of the Kickstarter. And I believe you're on Facebook as well.
Yep,
yes,
we're
on Facebook. We are Dungeon World Encounter Decks.
Encounter Decks on Facebook.
Yeah. And our website is encounterdex.com, right? Just encounterdex.com. So because
Actually,
we like to keep people guessing, But all those links are on our Facebook. The links are also all on our Kickstarter, and also the reverse links are all on our Facebook website. If that makes any sense.
Awesome.
Yeah. Actually, one of my regular players is listening in, and he just sent me a message that he's heartbroken that Cheryl died. He wasn't there that session. I think they all loved her.
That's great. So why don't we put this out there? Anyone who is watching, if they are interested in maybe doing a virtual Dungeon World game next week, they can send us a message and we can put something together and we'll broadcast it live, and that'll be an opportunity for more people to tune in, ask more questions. We can talk more about your project and have a good time playing the game. Show people what it's all about.
That sounds great.
Give you something to look forward to next week.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you, Nikko, for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
You're a good sport.
Thanks so much.
Any closing remarks before I shut down the broadcast?
We want your money. We need your money. Give us your money. If you don't know me, I have a great sense of humor. So,
so what are them? Do you have different reward levels for your Kickstarter? Then what are people's options if they haven't checked out the page yet?
There's a button you click on, and it's give you me the money. No, there's it follows the standard thing. So I think the minimum is $2, which is, I guess you can give anything, but $2 is the nod, just to be nice. And then it goes to what is it, $10?
I think it's $15, so I'm looking at it right now. So the $1 is...
I was hoping somebody was looking at it.
Yeah, so the $1 is your regular, we call it the nod. It's get you on the list so you can see how the thing is progressing. The 15 gets you all of the PDF. So anything we do in PDF, you get everything. Richard called it the no bullshit PDF. So, and then we have for $32. That was the early bird, and they're all gone. And then we had a $37 is the standard encounter deck with shipping, and then $37 if you're local. We had an option without shipping.
Does that include? Sorry, $37. Yeah, but that doesn't include the shipping.
That's right. So you add shipping on top of that.
And just a word on that. If people say, "Oh, $37, it's too much," for a deck of cards plus the shipping, it's like, stuff costs money. It costs money. Things cost money. You probably can't buy a lot of fancy coffees for $37. So shut up. And I mean, anyway, yes, but that's just my anger coming through. But yeah, I mean, things cost money. And that's why we like to say that this deck is really great, not just for Dungeon World, but other indie games, for stat-light monsters, but also even Dungeons and Dragons and things, where the fiction can really, really help spice up your adventures. So.
Well, I think that's what's so great about these cards too. If you purchase a deck of cards, it's not just one game. Like, you could get countless games. You could get years and years and years worth of stories and games out of that one deck. So it could last a lifetime, really. And yeah, as you said, it can work for different games as well, I suppose. So. Really, you invest this one time, and you got a future full of amazing stories.
We actually will include a few blank cards with it. Hopefully,
because we're lazy.
No, because that allows you to do the Sturgis.
It's just
blank card. We needed Sturgis.
It's because the cards are printed on a big sheet, and there's going to be space at the end. So whatever. Yeah, we'll do
it. For you to get creative.
Yeah. Yes,
For those of you who don't get his humor.
And there's so many of you. I feel sorry for all of you. Yeah. Anyway, so so like Frank said, it goes to $37, and then it sort of climbs for different things. You can pay us for the right to create a monster. We'll be happy to do that. It goes all the way up, and then later on we're going to be unlocking things like the custom box. We have a friend of ours locally who's an excellent woodworker, and he will make custom wooden boxes. To store your cards in, and that level basically comes with the deck that goes in it and the box and everything else, and it'll all be shipped. Yeah, I don't think we put in like the $5,000 we'll come to your house to run a game no matter where you live level of reward, but
if you want that,
send us an email.
Know.
Yeah,
we'll come and do that for sure.
We're desperate to get away from our home.
And you want that?
Oh yeah. We'll come and invade your house and. Play games. It'll be awesome. Richard will draw pictures of you, and I'll lead you through some crazy stuff. It'll be awesome.
No. I keep trying to draw Frank like one of my French girls, but it doesn't work. So.
Big deal.
Joke from a movie. Anyway, so yeah.
All in the angle of the beard.
Yes, it's really good.
All right, so what would you recommend then if someone does have more questions? What's the best and easiest way to get a hold of you guys? Is it over Facebook or through your website?
We check everything daily, so Facebook, Twitter, whatever you want to do. You can, you can track us down an email, Google+. We're in the Dungeon World Tavern as well, so.
Best way to reach us, make a pledge, and you can guarantee that we'll be reached if you make a pledge on our Kickstarter. So, yep.
Definitely.
Pledge.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely be pledging, and I'll definitely be sharing the word. And you should all, everyone watching, definitely pledge. It's an awesome project. You're going to get so much out of this, and you just feel really good about supporting a local, awesome indie project like this. So good job, you guys. I'm really excited about it.
Thanks so much, Nikko.
Thanks, Nikko.
All right, logging off. See you later, guys.
Okay.
See ya.
Cheers.
Are you going to disappear too when the thing stops, or just no?
Stay. I'm going to press the button, but stay.
Okay. I'm staying.